episode 4 of Back to Reading Credits, we have April Walker in the house. April is a fashion icon, entrepreneur, educator, and author whose work has been featured in Forbes, InStyle, Essence, the New York Times, Drink Champs, Vogue, CFDA, and many more, I'm sure, right? April is a pioneer in urban fashion. Her brand, Walkerwear, helped create a multi-billion-dollar industry now known as streetwear. She commanded millions in sales and kicked in distribution doors for others working in urban fashion. April was one of the first designers to start a styling division working with clients like Shaq, Wu-Tang, Hype Williams, and many more. Icons such as Tupac, Big, Jay-Z, and Aaliyah have all donned her brand. When April is not sitting at the helm of Walkerwear, she is an author, educator, Tisch NYU adjunct professor, contributor to Parsons Streetwear Essentials, and producer. And that's all barely scratching the surface. I didn't know about the NYU.
Oh, you did it?
The academics. So how long you been doing that?
I was doing that right after the pandemic. And most recent is Pensole Lewis College. I have to plug them because they are the first business and design HBCU school, and they are located in Detroit. And they're doing amazing work with a strong lens on people of color, of course, and really teaching them. It's the first HBC that is like, we are taking space and holding space for all elements of design, from apparel to footwear to interior design, and we have the masters teaching it. So like the guy that created the Jordan shoe teaching the class, so you actually get to see ideate a footwear piece. They teach me how to engineer and architect it. And then I get to see the product development. I go to the factory and watch it being created. And then it goes in DSW. So now I'm actually seeing it for sale. And I'm a part of that whole process. So it's really revolutionary. And I'm very honored because they just named the apparel studio after me. So that's going to be at the next homecoming. They'll announce it. But they gave Ruth Carter the sample room, mine the apparel room. It's just all. Are you
kidding me?
All black everything.
That's great. Well, we done jumped right into
I'm
it.
sorry.
But no, it's fine.
I had to bring them up.
No, I think it's good. I've known April. I've known you for
a long time.
And we've done this before.
Since Miles was a baby.
Yeah, exactly. Since my oldest was in a stroller. And you had you and your dad had a shop on Fulton Street. So I think I'm so excited I say that to say we can get right into it. So I'm so excited to have you now back into the brick universe. We were joking before we started here. You were such a big deal. I was intimidated when I first, saw you because of the things I said in the bio, right? This whole sector, was created by you. I know, and you give props to Dap and Carl Kanai, but I love lifting you up because I want to make sure that people this is the Mount Rushmore that needs to be remembered. Walkerwear with, Pac and Big, and we don't even talk about Mike Tyson had the trunks on and all of that. Again, you created a whole world, and then you walked away. We'll get to why. And then you came back.
Right. I think for me, there's different seasons in life, right? Like you're in a different season now. I understand that in that totality. I think I was there when I walked away, right? And did some other things like the pet shop and other entrepreneurial ventures. But I also had a consulting company. So history was being made. Like we weren't in the digital era when I walked away. So I was seeing that change as it was becoming so much more about hype over substance. And for me, being somewhat of a truist, when I started being one of the first architects, that was painful to watch. When you see real designers with great fashion. And there was a lot of unsung heroes that weren't getting real estate space because maybe there was a X line coming out by this artist that would be around for maybe 6 to 12 months, but they can make $10 million with them. And then next, it was becoming that more about, just like albums. Like there was a time when music artists would be developed and it wouldn't be about, you got this one hit wonder, you better make it they would hang in with you for a few albums and develop you. So the analogy to fashion was seeing that change, if that makes sense. So that all burned me out, along with being a woman and being one of the only women when I started. And I mean, to date, we need more women, right? Like, and then more women of color, but we have a lot more in position now. So I'm happy about that. But when I started just dealing with that and always uh, trying to find your voice without sounding like the angry one in the room, because you're not. But I think as a woman, it's changed. But when I started, if you were strong, if you were independent, if you were all these things and had your own independent ideas, you were perceived as a word. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that word spread pretty quickly, and you just get tired of wearing that. Like, I just want to create. I just want to make. I just want to um, lean into the life I love and collaborate with other creators and make money while I'm doing it, but also serve the community. And that's always been my thing. So when I felt like it was changing and becoming something else and just being so heavy of just business without the creativity and all the other element, I was like, I'm out. Y'all got this, you know? And so that's really what happened. And I found in that my love of nature, my love of just my calling. Like, okay, that's why I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, just spiritually, I feel like it was a chance for me to get to know myself, but also be in alignment with God and what I'm supposed to be doing. And while I'm here, and that was able to connect me to come back, if
I
that
see.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was doing other entrepreneurial ventures and I felt them, but I started a consulting agency, which started getting a lot of work just coming to me while I had the pet shop. So I was actually doing some work with Tupac's family. They had Machiavelli. I did a lot of stuff from footwear with Ron Artest. There was so many things going on behind the scenes. And what I realized with clients, when you're consulting, you might understand this. They pay you, but they don't listen all the time. And that frustration, if you're a creative consultant, is like, no, 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 you're gonna hit that brick, but you're gonna hit that wall. Why are you paying me and you're not
And not
listening?
listening.
And
Yeah.
so I realized I have this brand equity sitting on the shelf with my brand. I'm feeling the bug again creatively. And the digital era kicks in like bam. Oh, I don't need a middleman. And if I put one thing out a year or 100, it's going to be all good. Or 1,000 or 2,000. I can go at my own pace, write my own story. And the other thing I saw was this disconnect. It's funny how technology is, because I think that it's connected us in so many ways and disconnected us in so many ways. And I saw the disconnection happening with this face to face and with our generations understanding the history. And I said, how can I share our history without being preachy? So walk aware was that common denominator, and then reverse mentorship. Me, I'm big into like tapping into what younger people are thinking about. And I felt like this is a way for me to be able to do that with my brand and give them gems and get gems at the same time. And just spread the love with culture. And really that's where it started, being able to do what I loved again, but not worried about everything else.
You could feel it. Like, I mean, knowing you so well, like there's such a piece to it now. You're like, I'm not bothered by that, and that where you didn't know before. But as you know, obviously we can get into it.
Right,
But
right.
I'm gonna, just for those who may not know the awesomeness of April Walker, we're gonna rewind the clock. Talk to me about
Okay.
those formative
Formative years
stages.
were very important. So I grew up as a jazz baby and we moved around. So I was born in LA, people don't know. And then my father had pursuit of music and jazz and love. And we moved around. So we moved from here to um, actually South Bronx. From South Bronx, we went to Boston. We came back to Lower East Side and landed where we landed was in Bed-Stuy on Madison between Nostrand and Marcy, right next to the old boys high, and lived there. Those were my formative years. I grew up at the East with the Uhuru Sasa, and went to school there actually. first grade. And that was big for me because getting to see like Mtumi and so many people, so many legends from Gary Bartz to Sunrise. It was so many people that played there and were a part of that from Roy Ayers on. And those were the relationships, Jackie McLean, all these Max Roach, all these people that I was around in my formative years where you know how jazz people dress. They dress differently, especially then,
Yeah,
right?
no
Then
doubt.
it was even 70s was different. But my father felt a little left, like because that was his world. But because of that, I was exposed to a lot of different elements. And one of them was community very early on because the East was really about that. And it was really about community building. So I think, and it was a fighting spirit, I think, very early on. I grew up during the time of Vietnam War and, Watergate scandal and really seeing the disparity growing up in Bed-Stuy at that time, at that age, knowing that something wasn't adding up. You
Hmm.
know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it wasn't, in some ways, life didn't seem fair. So I think that the East brought it home about building a sense of community for us, no matter what the world looked like and how we needed to build together. And I think part of that spirit has always stayed with me.
The East, because I imagine some people may not fully get the
Right.
reference. Just break that down for a second, if you can.
So the East was a community organization that existed. I think it was on Claver Place and it was right off of Fulton Street. And they actually down the street from the East was actually a health food co-op that you could go to before co-ops were a thing. But the East would celebrate community. They would do all kind of workshops. That's actually where the African Street Festival started. For
Mm.
many that don't know, that's where it started. But it started from these concerts that would go on right in the community, and people would come and they would play and they would have these jam sessions, and it was the greats. But these were all tribe members that kind of had the same sense of community, and then their kids, and then the offshoots of that. And then from the East, they started Uhuru Sasa, which was a school. And that school was about empowering us, about cooperative economics, about so many things, right? When you think about the principles of Kwanzaa, you can just think about the East, And so that's the spirit we took with us, like each one teach one, but
Mm.
this is what it is. And we're more powerful together.
So back in those days, I guess I'm wondering, when did the fashion hit you?
Oh,
Was it an offshoot? Was like
it was an offshoot. I was a hustler, like straight up and down. I was trying to figure out my life. By the time I was in high school, in the 80s now, I was my dad was now in R&B, so he managed D Train. I remember I was dating someone. Shout out to Ramel in Marcy Projects, and in Marcy, right next to Ramel was Jazz. Jazz lived in the next building, and he knew my dad was in the business, and so
oh,
he
jazz
gave
like jazzo.
Jazzo. He
Yeah.
gave me his demo, and I gave it to Dad, and then that's how Dad started managing Jazz and Jay-Z. So then they, as in high school, they were grew up in my living room. So like it was this guru moved from Boston and became literally I was in 1A, he was in 1C.
What?
Easy Mo B was in 430, I was in 420. So there were all these different connections coming from all these different ways. And then at the same time, I was sneaking in like Copacabana and Bonds and Broadway because Dad was managing D-Train. So me being 16, 17, I'm in all these clubs getting all these energies from Studio 54 to, Zanzibar. Insane. And I was a skatehead. So I grew up in Empire. All of these things.
Mm.
New York was like an outside museum at that time.
Yeah.
And it was so much happened. It was electricity in the streets. And then it's always been a melting pot for fashion. But at that time, it was on fleek, the
Mm.
80s, And so I think a lot of that stirred in me. And we can't forget hip hop. Hip hop in the 80s became commercially viable in a big way. And I had that hustling spirit because I didn't want to work for someone else. I was real clear on that. I
Mm.
think my father was a guiding light in that, dancing to his own beat. I couldn't sing. I was around all these elements and I always loved to dress. I didn't own that
Mm-hmm.
because I was doing everything from selling pots and pans to going to the fashion industry and buying linen suits and silk dresses and selling them wholesale. I was baby boy before baby boy in high school. So I was always figuring it out. But by the time I was in college for communications and for business, and that's when I was hanging hard. And I went in Dapper Dance one night and I was like, okay, like I get it. Because Brooklyn boroughs were really different
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that time.
So you to go from Brooklyn all the way uptown to see Dap was a
Oh, it was
that
a
was a
thing.
big
I was
it was a
going
big
to
thing.
Apollo all the time, the amateur night at the Apollo. But walking in Dapper Dan, I saw the Willy Wonka. But like we don't have anything like that in Brooklyn. There was no place that was serving what we did, and we didn't dress like they dressed uptown.
Right.
So I was like, I could do this. Like this makes sense. And I had the customers. By this time, my dad was working with Jay, Jazz. I knew everybody. Like I was in the streets and the hustlers. Like literally at that time, the hustle scene was crazy. So that's how it started.
So is it fair? So Dapper Dan, I've heard you say this before. He
was a
seeing that
big
show was
part
the one
of
that
the tapestry.
flipped the switch.
He flipped the switch. I think prior to that, now I give my dad a lot of credit because I think that was first and foremost gave me the spirit and the gumption that you can do this, you know. And even when I started, I had taken corrections and fire department before this, was just safe, you know. And when I signed my lease, I got called for both. And my mom cried and my dad was happy because he was married. She was married to a creative, so you know what that was like. And
she was worried
like,
for you.
Me, right?
Yeah.
I get it now, but I'm gonna go after this, and he was the only one that was like. Everybody else was like, "You sure you want to do that?"
Shout out, mom and dad. I don't know mom, but I seen
both
dad.
of them.
Yeah,
so
you need that.
I remember becoming Roxanne. And I remember UTFO feeling like, look at Roxanne Shante. She's brown skinned, she's real hood. Her hair is not straight because I couldn't straighten it. It just won't straighten, it just wouldn't. I remember that, but I also remember being raised in a household where my mom made sure that she reinforced everything about me and made it beautiful. Like your eyes, you know, your color, your this, your that. So going into hip hop, my mom was just the best for what I was getting ready to deal with in hip hop. So we're talking about colorism now. They said there's no way the girl Roxanne that they could be going after would look like her. So we're gonna get a light-skinned girl. So they came up with who they wanted to call the real Roxanne. So they said, yeah, that's Roxanne Shante, and she can rhyme and she can battle and she's really good, but we're gonna hit you with the real Roxanne because she's a light-skinned girl and this is who they would go after. But that wasn't even good enough. So then they fired the light-skinned girl and went and got a Spanish girl and made her the real Roxanne. And I remember going back to my mom and saying like, Ma, look, like they got a light-skinned girl and now they have a Spanish girl. And my mother was like, well, don't worry about it, child, because if they go get a white one, this hip hop thing is over. You ain't even gotta worry about that. So I experienced that. And I remember walking into places and feeling like, wow, am I not good enough? So then that turned Roxanne Shante into this MC that no one wanted to see coming. Because I realized this is not about looks. This is not about being a pretty girl. This is about me being a great MC.
And make no mistake, you are pretty.
And the thing about it was now I became this MC that I wanted to battle everyone because now I don't want this spot. I want all the spots. And I think I created what they considered to be that angry female MC, but I wasn't angry. It's just over talented and overlooked.
So what's the first project? Because it wasn't Walker Wear wasn't the first venture, was it?
No. So I signed my lease with Fashion in Effect at 212 Green Avenue. And I was a junior in college when I did this. And I decided I wanted to start. I didn't want to wait. I always say start before you're ready because that's what I did. I listened to hip hop. I was following it hard. I was believing in it. I saw the tsunami and that energy coming. And I knew what it was because I was living it. But I felt like there weren't any examples. When I went to, at that time, my mom would take me to Sims. Shout out to Sims for my outfits. I was buying Oscar de la Renta, Tahari, everything. But there was nothing that looked and felt like what I was listening to. Public Enemy, Run DMC, all of that. We were already putting together our stuff and ripping up our jeans and just bling blinging all the things. But I wanted to serve, and I could give you that because I know what that is. So that's really how it started. And I think once we commit to it, the world will assist us in aspiring to give us what we need. And that's what happened. It became a magnet, that little shop. It was a hole in the wall. I literally was liquidators. I went to the fashion industry to get my machines, all the things. I borrowed some Adapts workers. And this is how we started, like clues, success leaves clues. I just looked at where it was already and literally stood outside of factories and did what we needed to do.
So just to be so Fashion in Effect was your own designs,
my first,
or were you?
It was
all
original. I was doing. It was a custom atelier shop that really was doing everything from like sweatsuits, velour sweatsuits, denim with kente, puffer coats, all leather. And then we did tuxedos. We did the ballers, like Ballers Ball. We were fitting all the tuxes, all the sequence gowns. Like we did everything. Easter Sundays, we had you.
Yeah. When does Fashion in Effect then turns into Walker Wear? What year are we in?
So in '86, I started out the house. That's what happened. And I was still in school, but I had the machines and I had the workers, and they were literally and my mom was like, no more. Like, you got to get out. Like, so that's how I got this shop in '87. In '87, I was officially a business. And then what happened was, as hip hop kept growing and I was starting to we started a design, we started custom making. Our first artist was Shinehead, Shaggy, and then Audio 2, right? And Audio 2 said, you can do our cover. From that cover, we did that in tandem with Shirt Kings. From that cover, they came back like, hey, can you style this next video for us? Knew nothing about styling, but I said yes.
You MCs hate. I really don't care what you think or say. I gotta bust a rhyme in my own special way.
And from that, I learned about styling, and we started a styling division. That opened the floodgates for me for product placement and for me seeing other revenue streams and listening to my customers. They kept asking me. At that time, everything was so fitted. Calvin Klein's no friend of mine. Like, that was a real thing. So Calvin Klein owned the streets pretty much. But what we were doing was seeing and listening to them saying, we want more pocket room. We want to be able to fit our hands in our pocket. Basically, the stash pockets came from that period. And we were like one of those early ones to give bigger pockets, deeper pockets, more leg room, lower the crotch, more what you call hence bootleg now. Like they kept asking, can you make my pants so they could fit inside of my Timberland boot or right outside of it? So like those things we kept hearing over and over. And that's how the Rough and Rugged suit came about. And that was the first suit that I finally said, let's try it.
Wait a minute. We got to rewind. I didn't realize. So those pockets were the
I mean, that's what people call stash pockets. Yeah, but we started oversized pockets. We were one of the
So
first.
that is, and you jump right into, so that Rough and Rugged suit, that's that iconic.
Yes.
Big.
Yep,
big
oversized jacket.
Yeah.
And at that time, and still to this day, workwear is always really a
Mm.
big inspiration for me. And I thought if I could make workwear, which was very functional and like utility wear almost, if I could make that sexy, so to speak, and if I could make it fashion where it's less is more, understated, but still like, oh, that's nice, clean, where you could wear it to work, but you could wear it at the club.
Mhm.
That's really what I was going for. But and I wanted durability, because Timberlands were so big at that
Mhm.
time. I worked from the floor up more than
Yeah.
anything.
No, it's interesting when you give me so many new thoughts. That workwear that you see like a Carhartt, right, is workwear, which is now popular in different ways. We could almost rewind that back to
Yeah,
Walkerwear. Y'all
right.
weren't you look
No,
that was a dude going
right. They were doing
on the job on the
right,
construction site.
right. I would say Carhartt. I would say Dickies. Those were big
Dickies.
influences for me. You
Yeah.
know.
So Milk, which I know you
Right.
still to shout out to Milk D,
Yep.
great brother. So he was your first artist, but then I'm thinking, what was the first time that it hit me? Because I didn't know. When I think about Milk, I think about Shirt Kings because they had that design. It was the Run DMC, right? Was it
Right.
Down with the King?
Down with the
Didn't you
King.
do
That
that
was
one?
later. I did
But
that.
that's much later,
Yeah.
right?
So after Milk, one day Biggie came in the store, and this is before he was signed. When I do the math, he must have been about 15 then.
Mm,
Yeah. So that's when we first met, and he first bought something from Fashion in Effect, and I found out he was an artist. I knew him from the hood. You would see him in the neighborhood. But after that, he got a deal. When he got his deal with Bad Boy, he didn't forget us.
And my whole crew is lounging, celebrating every day, no more public housing. Thinking back on my one-room shack, now my mom pimps a act with minks on the back.
mm.
And then that's how I met Diddy and that whole Bad Boy team. And I started working with, all of those artists, a lot of those artists. And then from that, word spread because at that time we were all networking, so Heavy D. And
Right.
that led me into Uptown, and I started working with a lot of the Uptown artists. It was just so incestuous at that time. And there weren't a lot of stylists. So it was like once I started Walkaway, I would started getting calls.
And shout out, I know we've done other events, and shout out Misa.
Shout out to Misa. But right before Misa, though, or around the same time, was another stylist that we don't talk about enough, and that was Sybil Penix. And
Mm.
Sybil Penix was actually instrumental at Uptown Records. And she actually did a lot of Jodeci and a lot of the work you see today. She's done Mary J. Blige, some incredible work early on.
Yeah, I think this is so great because I think, what we want to do with this podcast is like these things that you don't realize and people don't understand that look for those artists. It was the sound in obvious ways,
Absolutely.
but they had a look, and the fact that you dreamed, not, imagine that look. I always think I always talk about you and like Ralph McDaniels of like, if these two
Absolutely.
people did not exist,
Ralph is
this whole
instrumental.
world that we are all eating off of, I'm not saying it wouldn't exist because it would have evolved a different way. It would not look like this. So my question for you, when was the moment? Because I do remember all of those things, and it was the Walker wear. It was like this kind of, I always looked at it as elite. Like you couldn't get to it. I was in the Bronx, so coming down to Fashion Effect seemed like another world. What was the moment when I don't know, somebody came into the shop or you styled somebody and you were like, yo, this is it. Like I'm moving the needle with my designs. Like I'm defining the culture. What was that? Or was there a one moment that you
There
could
were
point
many moments like that for me, to be honest. I remember I was at Kilimanjaro's. Shout out to Kilimanjaro's Club. And I had on a custom made sequence gown. And, Run DMC is and will always be Run DMC. And Jam Master Jay came up to me and asked me who made the gown. And I gave him a card. And he was like, yeah, right. You didn't make that, And I was like, I did. I do custom, And the next week I got a call from Run DMC, like, you want to custom make our next whatever. And that's how I started working with them and styling them. That was really a big moment. I remember the first day we went in the stores, there was a chain store was huge at the time called Merry Go Round.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we sold Merry Go Round. And one of their stores was in the Empire State Building. And I remember going in the store and seeing how they were selling our stuff. I didn't want to ask them. I actually found a sales rep there from them trying to sell it to me. And the way they were, Dwayne, shout out to Dwayne, he was selling it. He believed in it. And I was like, okay. When I left the store, I came out the store, and across the street, there was a dude walking, and he had on a Walker-Wear t-shirt. And I was like, yes, because I didn't know him. It wasn't like this networking thing. So we just really started getting out there and distributing our stuff in a national level. And me seeing the first person, that was really big. I remember my sister calling me in Japan, like, yo, I just saw somebody wearing your stuff. Like, those are the moments that keep you going, you know. I remember the first time Tupac called me and said, yo, I want you to do the wardrobe for Above the Rim.
Fucking makes sense to me now. All this time, people been telling me Tom Shepard is so fucking raw. Too bad he started tripping when his friend died. He got all the fucking talent with no heart. I'm sitting here thinking, a brother can't be this fucking weak.
That was a moment, you know.
So did you know Pac? Or did he call you because you April Walker?
No, I was styling him by this point. I remember meeting Pac on a few occasions. One was BWP, and we kept running into each other while I was working. I remember I wore a velours custom suit to try to get into, I wanted to be an extra or whatever in the movie Juice. And Ralph McDaniels was a part of that, and he had a casting call. So I was like, I'm gonna wear this. And if I don't get business, I'll get business. So that's what happened. I wore the suit and I didn't get the part, but a lot of people asked me for cards, and he was one of them.
Oh.
And so I don't know, around that time is when we really cemented, okay, we're gonna work together. And so by this time I had done Holla If You Hear Me and a few of his other stuff.
So he was really
I met him when he was a roadie for Digital.
For Digital Underground.
And so watched his climb, and he was telling me his dreams. And once he started getting on, I met Karen and, you know, all his PR and started working with him.
Yeah, so you really caught him
at the crux of it.
Yeah, right when he was exploded as the icon, you know, that he is and was. But then even when like Wu-Tang was coming on, right? And I know you still have a relationship with Method Man, at least.
Yep.
So how did that? You were the person everybody was calling after that?
Yeah,
Is that fair?
And it was and I think whoever's listening to this, a big thing that still counts is relationships. What did you say when you started? Like, we've known each other a long time. Relationships, if you really hone your skills and really are about that life, and you can build real relationships authentically, they count. People know the authentic relationships. And I think that also being young, being a creative, not having a big budget, when you believe in someone before they hit fire, they remember that.
Yeah.
And it really counts.
Yeah.
So most of the artists we're talking about, I didn't work with them when they were who you know today. I worked with them before they became that. And I give my instincts credit, and probably growing up in the music business, I knew when something was fire, even if it made it or not. That didn't count. It's like, do you believe in it? And I think that's the art first. And so all we had was each other, because at this time, even though it was becoming a multi-million-dollar business, it was still at the point where people were saying, oh, hip hop isn't going to last. It's going to go away. It's, you know, why should I buy your stuff? You know, why should I pay this instead of paying for a Fila sweatsuit? It was very debatable. So we had each other, and I think that's how we were supporting each other.
Yeah, I think that is so... just as I think about you, right, all of those people, you can still see they still love you. They still rocking. You know, I still see Meth, you know, on the website when he's now gone to 6 levels up.
Oh, I'm so proud of him.
It still is like, but I want a Walker-Wear suit. Right. It's still this very specific status.
We were building these dreams and like, I don't care what you say, we're gonna do this, you know?
Yeah. Listen, I could go on. I do want to, I think you talked about the sort of, I don't want to talk about the ups and downs of Walkaway. You kind of covered that beginning. I want, pushing sort of forward, unless you want to get
Yes,
into it. I think
let's
there's
do it.
some lessons we can get into, but I just cannot, like, y'all wouldn't be wearing your jeans the way you wear them if it wasn't for this woman. I just like that
Thank
idea.
you.
It's a simple thought of like, y'all want wider legs. It was like, I bet you get wider legs. It's so hip hop,
Yeah.
to the way, and where Dap was very fancy and Gucci this and Gucci that, I think you kind of went like
The
this
other
other
spectrum, like
way.
less is more, and
That
just like
less is
listening to
more.
those customers. If you listen to them, you can serve them, and it's always about a pain point and a solution, right? And I think that was where I was lucky.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, sort of like the broader April Walker empire brand, the person, because you're riding high. We talked about these things, a little bit of the patriarchy, misogyny. All of a sudden, you have a black woman, Afro-Latina woman shining. People aren't too happy about that. It comes out in different ways. I don't want to bring it down, but if you want to talk, what that kind of how you walked away.
Right.
But then you sort of came back even stronger. Now this author, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that research, the sort of April Walker 2.0, the author, the advocate, the mentor. What was the first book you wrote though? What was
Walker Gems.
Walker
Get your
Gems?
ass off the couch.
Yeah, get right. With the donkey, had the donkey on the cover. That was the first one. And that one was really, you channeled a lot of those challenges
Right.
in a positive way.
That time away was so enlightening for me to like not look at things as good or bad, but understand myself in the process and the part I played in all of it, and what was really important to me versus aspirations and ambition and all the things that we chase. And success really to me is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more you can't ever catch it, because it's always going to be something. So you have to be fulfilled from the inside. And for me, that is like right now is mind, body, and soul, and being in alignment with that. And that's a daily challenge, but it's one that I'm always intentional about. And I have good days and bad days, but I'm at peace with myself in a world full of distractions, and there are abundant distractions, way more than when we grew up. But it's really, I think we're all living in our own dream. So for me, it was just, what is your dream? And what do you want to accomplish by here? And I think the biggest part of it is my character, right? So I had all of this richness inside of me from these experiences and knowledge, and knowing what it takes, and knowing what burnout feels like, and knowing all of that, knowing how to take care of yourself by this point, but also knowing how not to take care of yourself to get to that point. And then being a woman of color, like understanding how to find your voice and utilize it and stand up and express yourself for others that may not have that voice, but just you have influence. So use that influence, like at least enlighten others to your experience, because I'm sure if I experience that, there are others that are experiencing it that might not have that bullhorn.
Yeah.
So those were kind of some of the perspectives, besides really wanting to serve, because I feel like God didn't bring me all this far for me to just put out my own light. And I was missing the creative element. I really was missing just being creative and building with other creators. And I wanted to do that worldwide.
Has it been longer, this sort of April Walker, Walkaway 2.0? It's been
Like been a minute.
20 some odd years, right? Since the brand's been back, or right. Give me
Not
my
20
time
years,
right.
yeah. So since the brand, I came back. Well, it might be. It's getting close. So 2000 in totality, in 2027 will make 4 decades. And one of the reason I find, I'll be honest, I want the Walkaway brand to stay alive and well. We have to redefine what success looks like. because I think that too many people are chasing bags without knowing their reason. And I think that if we find our reason, the world would be a much better place and people would be much happier. And that is success when you are doing planting the seeds you were here to plant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's it. And I think that if you do that, the money will find you.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to trust that process. And it's hard, but that's faith, right? That's
Yeah.
believing in yourself and something more. But that part, and also we don't have enough Black brands that are legacy brands. And I can't really name one right now, except for Carl Kanai is still going. Shout
Mhm.
out to Carl Kanai, Cross Colors. There are some, but if we compare the playing field, we're nowhere near leveling the playing field of the world. And the fashion industry is a microcosm of the macro situation of our country, you know, and our world.
Tell me more. Why give me more on that. Like, why do
I
you
mean,
say
if we
that?
look at Black and brown people, like, let's just start with Black Lives Matter. Like, that trended during the pandemic. Diversity and inclusion is, the departments are closing everywhere now. That is over, in their eyes, and it's not the hype anymore. You know, and I love us, but we spend over $1 trillion um, annually. Think about that. As consumers, we're the first to spend our money. And if we only spent 10 cents on every dollar in our own communities, we could employ everyone in our own community and uplift our communities, and it would be a healthy ecosystem. Just 10 cents. Our dollar stays in our communities for 6 hours, where it stays in other communities for 30 days. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
That's part of it, you know. And then the other part is, we're not living in, like I was that little girl. We're still not living in a fair society.
yeah.
So we have to do our part to make it fair. Like, voting is a big part of it. Whatever you think about voting, our ancestors worked too hard
Yeah.
for us not to be a part of that process. So you have to pick your poison sometimes. I hate to say it like that, but it's real. Like, you got to be proactive. If you're not proactive, don't talk to me.
Don't complain without action. I do want to come back, and I'm very wary of turning. I don't want to turn sort of negative, but I wrote a note down that you were doing. There was a time when everybody was flourishing, right? There was when I was coming up and sort of admiring you, right? It was you and two Black guys and Carl and Spike had his shop,
Right.
Then the Rockawares,
So it's
the Sean
like,
John. Did they come and hijack the
well, I
movement?
think even before them, when I said about the micro and the macro, I think with any form of art, fashion, film, music, if it's a form of true self-expression, I think once corporate America figures out, oh, we can make money off of this, they find a way to dilute it, to regurgitate it, and to sell it back to us with the price tag. And I think that that's what happened with hip hop fashion, with urban fashion, with streetwear, whatever you want to call it. And don't get me wrong, we were in it to make money, but too often we find the originators of the forms of these self-expression not participating in the equity for the long haul financially. We are not financially stakeholders, you know. To this day, there's still corporate looting happening every day from the originators and from people that are truest. You can go on social media is the best for that now, or for people to say, "Oh, we can do this," boom, and someone else is getting the credit. So it's a thing. It always has been, but
Yeah.
to change the playing field would be changing the dynamics of a corrupt capitalist society, and I won't get too far into that.
They're gonna run us out the
I
building.
know.
But I'm gonna go. I mean, I'm gonna go there a little bit and ask a question. I know this is not no answer to, but what's the solution, right? You see, like a Pharrell at
Right.
LV, that comes back to y'all,
Right.
and you,
Right.
and I don't want to take any of that shine away. But
Oh, no. I
would you
think
agree that
that-
there's another thing we also have to invest?
Right. So
What's
I
the
think
solution?
that there's not one solution. It's all solutions. I don't judge Pharrell for going there. Like, that's his decision. And I hope he makes great strides there. But I don't think I don't think three of us having those kind of positions is the answer.
Mm.
You know, I think that it's a collective participation. So I think it's going to have to come from many touch points at once. So while others are sitting at the table, others need to build the tables. And I think that's the answer. And then we need to empower our own by supporting those tables in all aspects. And we need to build together. We need to be inclusive with each other and share information. Me getting screwed on in a deal, I need to pass that on to someone else so they know, okay, don't mess with this. Well, this is what it looks like. I've been through this experience. Share information. That's the best way to move ahead and progress.
Yeah. I know you've been saying that for a while. I'm not mad anymore. Like, look at me. I'm at peace. I'm just telling you that manufacturer, that
Right.
distributor, you know, look out.
Lessons.
We got to pass it along, or you're
Yeah.
going to get
Are
hustled
you going to
yourself.
bump your head and you don't have to?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the greatest, the greatest thoughts. And another thought I remember you said years ago is that you almost stopped. I don't know if you still do this. You stop wearing your own stuff exclusively when you're
Right.
at like an event
Oh,
like
right
this and
now.
trying to find other
Right. But
designers.
I
So
do. I'm very intentional about wearing black and brown designers because so I think we have to get, I mean, I know that's like branding 101. I have on my stuff today. I knew we were doing this interview. But I'll also support other black designers and because I'm in a different headspace now. It's not I've built my brand.
yeah,
I've become a multi-million-dollar company and serve the world and all those aspirations. And it's funny. I was just talking to a friend today about while it's important, none of it means anything to me now. It's interesting. You know, it doesn't. So my thing is, how can I help as many people while I'm here on this limited time on earth?
hmm
Because it's not promised to us, you know. And so I feel like that's the work I'm supposed to be doing. And at any level, if I could wear somebody else's stuff and big them up so they can move up in the ranks, that's how we all win, you
yeah,
know, a win
yeah.
for all.
No, you got to go walkerwear.com, get your
That's right.
get your goodies.
Walkaware.com. We have education wise, there's another course coming. I'm going to be doing some mentoring sessions online. You can look for that. I also have a project that I'm really excited about with Brick coming. It's going to be a light installation project, and that is going to be celebrating women in hip hop. And it's going to have some really special guests involved. And you can see that through this summer down at Albee Square Mall. So definitely stay tuned for that announcement. I have a strong collaboration coming up with a company you would know. Mainly, you would know them for footwear. I can't say their name yet,
Okay.
but that's really going to be dope. And it's empowering women. So there's a lot of great
Yeah.
things coming down the pipelines. I'm working on a memoir doc, but it's legacy stuff and serving others. And I'm in a good space. And I'm definitely telling us all to take care of our minds,
Yeah.
our bodies, our soul. Movement is medicine. So move your bodies daily and take time for you. Like nothing counts if you're not good. So
Yeah.
so save your mental space.
Before we sort of start to wrap up, we were talking about the new exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, which you're
Mhm.
in.
Yes.
Talk to us a
Shout
little bit
out.
about that.
I'm really proud of that exhibit because it is a celebration of history of hip hop through jewelry and telling our stories, and it's done well. It's basically been manifested through the Ice Cold Jewelry book, and that is through Vicky Toback. So shout out to Vicky Toback for bringing this all in. Coach K. There are a lot of people involved in it. Slick Rick was the senior advisor on it. Mandy, Bev Smith. I know you guys know Bev.
Hmm
So it's a good crew, and then there are others. But shout out to the Museum of Natural History, the American Museum of Natural History. It's a profound statement for this history, our history, to be there, which it should as a part of American history. But it's in the gems and stones section, and it has amazing jewelry with amazing moments in time that these artists have owned. Um, and I'm privileged and I'm very honored to be one of 65 pieces that are in the exhibit. So everyone should go see it. It's there until January of 25.
when it comes to women rappers, they get held to a different standard than men when we talk about sex and exploitation and liberation. But also, women always get put on this binary pedestal. You're either this hypersexualized image or you're desexualized. Yep. And when you're talking about these two different types of artists, the woman who is more quote unquote modest and not sexually threatening is always heralded up against the woman who is hypersexual, but not at the expense of, her art.
That's it.
Actually at the expense of her art, because her art is not being engaged, her image is. And it's only being used as a pawn in this game of comparing these two different women, but you're not engaging either of their art. You're not engaging the woman who's hypersexual, and you're not engaging the woman who isn't. So I don't know who wins when we're talking about that type of comparison of liberation versus modesty versus exploitation, because at the end of the day, who is dictating what the rules are is still men. Yeah. Whose gaze is informing and dictating what we view is still men.
So I got my last question before we're going to play the game of this or that. So I'm starting, somebody out there listening or watching is in their home cutting and sewing. And they're like, okay, I want to be, I want to follow in April's footsteps. Outside of anything that you've mentioned, what's maybe the one thing that I should be thinking about that you find most entrepreneurs in fashion or else maybe don't think about?
Finance. Study your money and understand numbers. I think that most entrepreneurs and creatives have great ideas and romanticize the vision without really understanding the business. So, finance is a part of the business. And you can say you have a business plan, but if you're really not intentional on knowing numbers and understanding where you want to go and benchmarks with planning, with projecting, with reality versus where you want it to be, being able to look at a financial statement, end of the year, a balance sheet, you know what I mean? A P&L, all of these things are to be learned, but the earlier you can learn them, and it starts with financial stewardship with thyself. I think that's the first step for any of us to really learn how to save and invest more than we spend.
Did you scale up Walkerwear pretty quickly once you started having these media hits, and did that financial piece kind of creep up on you?
So the first year we really came out the gate hard with Fashion in Effect. Even like it just was the right time. It was explosive with hip hop, and then we had the great relationships, and the product spoke for itself. So I think all of those things counted. I didn't know business like I know it now. That's been a learned experience of wearing many hats. But I'm a student always. So I remember the first few contracts I had. I've kept every contract I've done, I tried to keep. And then comb through it, learn the lawyer's language, learn why I needed certain clauses are going to be in all these contracts. Certain things you're going to see over and over. And then you start knowing, you start asking like, why isn't this here? I need minimums. Why am I not having this? I need an escape clause. I need a parachute clause. I need these things. You get burned once and then you learn next time, let's put this in the contract.
No doubt.
So it's just, it's part of it. It's a process. But the more you can be a student and learn from others, I encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah. Amen to all of that. So we like to do this thing at the end.
Let's do it.
Before we go, you have your chance to say your last words. But like the old school, like this or that, right? So you pick one and build on it. And this is interesting. Which do you prefer, behind the scenes or in front of the mic?
It was a time when I would say behind the scenes always, but I can do either.
Yeah.
Now.
Because now you're much more in front. You were almost like a bit of a mythical character.
Yeah,
you just saw the logo. I I can't even remember the first time I
I
saw
did that
your
on
face.
purpose. It was being a woman in a man's world, you know. But I think so I was very intentional about that. But I think now the other element is now we're all our own brands, whether we realize it or not. If you're working for someone or not, like it's the difference of you staying home on a Friday or working late. So you need to know how to negotiate your own brand and stand for your own brand and build your own brand. And so in that, I have to be in front of the cameras more. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
walkaway isn't my only tap dance. You know, I'm doing other things too.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I think that's the whole thing of why you're here is, out there advocating for yourself in such an aggressive, and I mean that in the best possible way,
Right.
like a pointed way, when that wasn't always the case. That's true evolution,
And I think that it's important for us to show younger women you can be
Yeah.
confident and have humility at the same time. They can live in the same house, but advocate for yourself
Yeah.
more than anybody else.
Okay, my next one, as you such a visual artist in many ways, album art or videos?
Album.
Album. Why?
Because
Tell
I'm
me
an
why.
old school, because it's just like to see, like, are we talking about, is it coming to life? Like, I'm going to hold it? I'm always going to want to hold albums. Like, that come from that school. I mean, I love video too, but there's nothing like real books, real albums, like tangible items. And to me, I like seeing ideation come to creation and
Mm.
physically hold it, you know?
Makes sense. You're a tactile person for obvious reasons, even though you get much more playing time.
Right. I
with the
love the
video.
metaverse and all of the other things and videos. I love that too. But as an artist, I'm always going to say I want to see and feel it.
All right, my last question. What's your favorite walkaway piece that you made? Like, what's that? Is there one joint that you're like, that one is the one that if I had my last dollar, that's the one I would buy?
I can't say one. Come on, that's such an unfair question.
I know, it's
As
unfair
a
on
creator,
purpose.
I know.
How about I'll switch it up? What's maybe the one piece that you like that maybe everybody doesn't know, right? Because you see the Jam Master Jay had
Right,
his
you
stuff
see
on.
all of that.
Here's this one joint I made that didn't get on the video, didn't get in the stylist, but that was the one that I thought was gonna pop. There's got to be something you gave to Pac that you thought he was gonna kill, and he chose something else.
No? No, because you know why? He was so heavily involved in his process that it was almost like a collaboration outside of him coming and seeing something like, yo, I want that, you know? So that, and I worked a lot with the artists. I've been very lucky in that sense. But what I would say is what I have on right now is the next thing coming. And I'm talking about this print. And the print is almost going to become like our trademark. You know, like you see the WW or Walkaware. This print, and it's done in a different color. It's catching a fire now, but for me it's personal because it tells a whole story. It's legacy. It's the roses. It has our logos in it. It's actually has a bit of technology with the pixelation. It's so many things happening. It's graffiti to me. So it was very personal, done at a very personal time, and my middle name is Rose. My grandmother's name is Rose. There's a lot of hidden stories and gems in this actual pattern that was made in collaboration with Phil from Brooklyn Combine. Shout out to Phil.
Okay.
But
They
yeah,
collaborated on this piece
on
right
this
here?
on this actual print, and we have them in sweatsuits. We have them in, like, a lot of men are now wearing the sweatsuits. So I'm just really excited about where this is gonna go.
Ever the business person be like, the flyest thing is the one I got on right now that you could go to walkaway.com
and see.
and buy. I see how you moving. I see, April, very smart. So listen, April, thank you so much for coming. I want to give you just the last word. Anything we missed, anything you want to, push. I had in my notes to talk about the Pensole, but you hit there. Anything else that you got cooking that you want to drop on us?
I've talked about education. I've talked about collaboration. I've talked about mentorship. I've talked about walkaware. I think the only last thing I'm gonna shout out is I have a young dream team that I'm shaping with a new blueprint that will be unveiled soon. So I want to shout out all of my young teammates that have really been waiting patiently. It is your time to rise. We're about to do the damn thing.
No doubt. That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, I want to thank April Walker for coming through. You know, such an inspiration back then. You continue to be, and I'm gonna go buy some joints.
Okay.
You know, later on today. Put my money where the mouth is.
I appreciate
Right.
that, and thank you for always driving the culture forward.